The classic molded leather coin purses are fun and easy to make, especially with the help of modern technology. Even though most of our purchases are done electronically, there is still a need for coin currency and parking meters, vending machines, or a coffee shop treat. So having a durable little coin purse with a few dollars in coins or a small stack of rolled up bills tucked away in case of emergency will come in handy. This video shows how I make these lined 2-pocket molded leather square coin purses. They are made from high quality vegetable tan strap leather. The inside coin pocket and lining are molded 3/8 of an inch deep, and the lined back pocket with a decorative raised and embroidered grip is the perfect size to carry a few cards. The flap lid with the raised and lined keeper adds extra strength and functionality to this fashionable palm-sized purse. After I sketch and draft what I want to make in 1:1 scale using AutoCAD, I cut out the acrylic patterns and glue up jigs for the parts with a hobby-sized laser cutter, and for the molded parts I used a 3" by 6" by 3/8 inch deep wet mold for the top and offset the bottom mold a 1/16 of an inch for the reverse lining, which makes 2 pockets. To use the wet molds, I soaked 2 pieces of 3-ounce vegetable tan strap leather, cut slightly larger than the mold, for 10 minutes in room temperature water. Then squeezed the leather into the molds using a vise for 20 minutes and used plastic wrap as a moisture barrier. The plastic wrap also helps release the leather from the mold. The leather I am using I bought from Wickett & Craig. It's their standard grade vegetable tan strap leather and molds easily because it is a very good quality. But leather expands and contracts with the amount of moisture, so I make the acrylic templates to fit when the parts are bone dry, which usually means allowing the parts to dry overnight. Since the coin purses are small and vegetable tan leather is very strong, even when split thin, so the unmolded parts are cut from a side split to 2-ounce to reduce bulk. When we make molded leather parts, we also have to have a way to work on the molded edges. So I made an MDF shop jig the same flat height but slightly smaller than the molded parts to fit under. An airbrush is an excellent way to apply dye to leather. When I spray inside, I use a spray tent with a makeshift cardboard spray box in the middle of the tent and a thin metal grate as a work surface. Then add a sheet or 2 of white paper to avoid color transfer between colors. For the best results, I only spray bone-dry leather. If I were to spray a color shortly after the leather parts are unmolded, the dye will not be absorbed into the leather uniformly. I use a small air compressor and basic hobby bottom-fed airbrush with large capacity bottles. Then open the nozzle full and with short bursts of dye relatively far from the surface, spray a mist of dye to flood evenly. Rotating the parts is needed for even coverage. You do not want to spray too long in one spot or you will add too much dye and affect the appearance, maybe negatively. I use a Phoebeans product called EcoFlow and am spraying scarlet red and coal black. I wear a mask and rubber gloves as a safety precaution. Then I let the leather dry completely, which is usually a few hours. When the rough parts are dry, they are sorted so work can begin on the details of marking and punching stitching seams, skiving, beveling, burnishing, and painting edges to prepare the pieces for further assembly, starting with exterior wear leather. The decorative raised and embroidered grip on the outside back pocket needs to be installed before the lining is attached. Then the back pocket opening can be finished and attached to the back of the lid. The raised and lined keeper is glued and stitched into place in 2 parts, so the ends are left unglued so they can be glued tightly around the lid and pocket curve during final assembly. The mold itself is the perfect size to shape the keeper after gluing. Small electrical clamps are very useful to me in my shop and are great for controlling the amount of pressure I add to create a strong flat bond, but not enough pressure to mark the surface of the leather, so they are perfect for shaping raised and lined parts. Since the lid will be mostly bent into a closed position, the lid is glued and stitched in 2 parts to accommodate the curve around the pocket to minimize the lining bunching up at the bend. Then the inside pocket is glued to the lining and trimmed flush. The construction jig I made also comes in handy to punch the stitching holes, but I use a punch pad to protect the lining from being marked up and to protect the ends of the chisels. I like to use reverse angle stitching irons on the inside molded pocket because it is easier to punch stitching holes on a flat surface. Then punch the stitching holes through the back pocket after gluing. Wet molded leather parts can be difficult to sew on a machine, so a saddle stitch is the best choice. I use John James number 004 saddler's harness needles because they are small yet very durable, and chose Ritza yellow 0.6 millimeter bonded nylon thread because it is very strong with tight fibers that resist the thread catching, and yellow is a nice contrasting color between the red and black dye used here. I like to stitch moving forward, pulling the material towards me, then finish with a triple back stitch. To finish a row of stitching, I tie off and use a lighter or a battery-powered thread zapper to burn off the ends. After all the stitching is completed and the coin purses are tested and function well, the edges need to be finished. I use my electric sander and finish with sanding sticks, then bevel and dye the edges. When dry, the edges are burnished and painted, then gently sanded between layers until a nice finish is achieved. The final conditioning is when the hard and stiff building materials I used are turned into a luxurious soft to the touch leather coin purse. I like to use a Phoebe's oil and wax product called Aussie and use paper towels to rub it in, then remove the excess. A bone folder is an excellent tool to help open the back pocket a little bit, making it easier to condition inside the pocket. I will condition again in a few days after the conditioner has had a chance to be absorbed, then add more conditioner when needed. The conditioner will help stop the strap leather from cracking and provide a nice soft finish that allows the leather coin purse to age gracefully as it is used, developing into a worn-in patina that improves with age.